بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. The first reading is from chapter 3, verse 92. لن تنالوا البر حتى تنفقوا مما تحبون وما تنفقوا من شيء فإن الله به عليم. You cannot attain to righteousness unless you spend out of what you love, and what you spend, Allah surely knows it. And then chapter 9, verse 111. إن الله اشترى من المؤمنين أنفسهم وأموالهم بأن لهم الجنة. Surely Allah has bought from the believers their persons and their property. In return is the garden. And the last one, which is chapter 2, verse 177. But I won't recite the Arabic, I'll just recite the translation, which says, it is not righteousness that you turn your faces towards east or west, but righteous is the one who believes in Allah and the last day and the angels and the book and the prophets, and gives away wealth out of love for Allah to the near of kin and the orphans and the needy and the traveler and to those who ask, and to set slaves free, and keeps up prayer and gives the due charity. And the performers of their promise when they make a promise, and the patient in distress and affliction and in the time of conflict. These are they who are truthful, and these are they who keep their duty to Allah. Hazrat Abu Talha Ansari was a companion, Razilullah Ta'ala anhu, was a companion of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. And he was very wealthy and owned a lot of land and orchards and so on. And one of his orchards, named Buhaira, was quite close to the Holy Prophet's mosque. And when this verse was revealed, that you will not attain to righteousness unless you spend out of that which you love, he went to the Holy Prophet Muhammad and he said that I love this orchard more than anything else, and I want to give it away for the sake of Allah. So the Holy Prophet said to him that his relatives, his kin, had the first right to his generosity. So he gave away to he gave that orchard away to one of his relatives. This is from Bukhari. Another example is a Jew who owned a well of sweet water, and he charged Muslims exorbitant prices for that water. And Hazrat Usman Raziyallahu Ta'ala heard about that, and he purchased that well, and he donated it to the state. And after that, everyone and anyone, regardless of what their religion was, could get water free. At the time of Badr, the Holy Prophet appealed for funds, and Hazrat Usman gave a quarter, Hazrat Umar gave half of all their worldly possessions, and Hazrat Abu Bakr Raziyallahu Ta'ala gave everything that he had. He said, one doesn't need anything more than the name of Allah and his Prophet to survive. I have related these instances and read out these verses because historically there have been three economic systems in the world. The oldest is capitalism, where everyone has free rein to amass as much wealth as they can by any means that they can. and use it and spend it in any way that they want. So let's have a look at some examples of how capitalism has worked. And remember, any restrictions put on capitalists were not as a matter of principle, but simply to get votes from people to get elected and become prime minister or a member of parliament or whatever. But let's go back to capitalism. In 1610, the British found tobacco. But in fact, it had been found previously. But at that time, there was a discussion in 1610 about what to do with it. There were two things, obviously. One was to ban it. The other one was to sell it to people. So the British government decided that they were going to sell tobacco to their own people. And they started an advertising campaign to encourage people to buy it. Now you would say, well, this is 1610, people didn't know about tobacco, they didn't know about its bad effects and so on. But if you look into history, you find that from 1590, 2 decades before that, doctors had been warning of dangers of tobacco, of its ill effects. But those papers, that research, that information made no difference at all. Because capitalism, the capitalist theory, did not care about people and their health, only about how much money, how much profit could be generated. And when I was at university in late 1960s, early 70s, I was astounded to find people there who had been given scholarships and funding by tobacco companies to write PhD theses. And what was the topic? The topic was that tobacco does not harm human beings. In fact, some of them actually wanted this research to prove that the tobacco was actually good for you. In 1990s, when American Congress held hearings and they asked 7 CEOs, these were CEOs of tobacco companies, whether tobacco caused cancer, and they denied it. They said, no, tobacco doesn't cause cancer. Then they were asked, is nicotine or cigarettes addictive? And they said, no. Cigarettes and tobacco is no more addictive than jogging or eating M&Ms, so small chocolate things. This is another example to show that from 1610 to 1990s, nothing had changed. As long as people could make money, that was the only concern. Certainly in 1990s, people would have known whether tobacco was causing cancer or not, etc., etc. You could say that the British Empire was the world's first drug smugglers. Yes, tobacco is a drug. You become addicted. you get cancer. You get God knows how many other lung diseases. And people would say, well, yes, this happened a long time ago, and so on and so forth, etc., etc. But this is not an isolated incident. In 1839, Britain went to war with China. And what was the reason for going to war with China? The reason was that the Chinese emperor banned use of opium. He wanted inspectors to go and go and get opium from British warehouses and set it alight. And British went to war with China, forcing Chinese to allow British to continue feeding this poison to their people. Yet that wasn't the only time. The Chinese tried again. And then again, between 1856, and 1860, both Britain and France attacked China. And what was the reason? Were Chinese raping British women or looting their property? No. The Chinese fault was that they wanted to ban use of opium in their country. And the capitalists of Britain and France saw big profits. So they forced the Chinese to agree to sell opium. Why don't their children who now run Britain allow their own countrymen heroin and cocaine and so on? Because that's what you were doing to the Chinese. But that's not the only thing. Last year I gave a sermon in which I showed that for decades, at least 20 years or more, no new vaccine has been produced to deal with deadly diseases which are prevalent in Africa. If a citizen of the US or Canada or European Union or Australia pricks his finger, drug companies fall over themselves to develop a drug that can cure that. Why? Because Africans are poor. There's no profit for the capitalists in making the Africans healthy or saving their lives, because they don't contribute to the bottom line. And that is what matters. The share price must be upheld, must be protected at all costs. Compare this with the following. I was watching the American Congress interview CEOs of some drug companies. They were asking them how these people justify extortionate prices for some drugs. And one example that was given was one pill for a particular cancer costs about $700. I forget which cancer and which pill and which company it was. And this congressman who was asking questions of the CEO of the drug company said it would cost one man at least $250,000 a year just for his drug. And he wanted the CEO of this drugs company to justify that. And of course, the justification is usual, isn't it? Oh, well, we need this money. We spent so much money on developing this drug and so on, and we need a return, and we need money for more research and all this kind of thing. Which isn't exactly true, because you get government grants and funds. COVID-19, did you spend all the money from your own pockets, or did you get huge amounts of money from the American government and the Canadian government and the British government and God knows which other government? That was my money from my taxes. And you still want to charge me exorbitant fees for buying those drugs that you developed with my money. And of course, as soon as you mention anything that protects humans or human rights or human health or human welfare, the cry is raised, oh, he is a communist. And communism, of course, is the other economic system. And that totally bars all private ownership entirely. And this causes them to restrict people's human rights. And because people resist this system, then their right to free speech, their right to free assembly, their right to vote in free elections are all curtailed, because someone has decided that this is the best system for the country. And the third system, which it is so sad that its adherents did not develop it or try to implement it. And it's sad that they still, that they decided that they're going to follow either capitalism or communism. And that system is the Islamic system, which places restrictions on earning wealth and on spending it. We go back to chapter 2, verse 177 that I read out. It said, money is to be spent. It's not righteousness that you turn your face towards the east and the west. The righteous is the one, and then it carries on, gives away wealth out of love for Allah to his relatives and to orphans and to anyone who's needy and to the travelers and to those who ask for it and to set slaves free. And then keeps up prayer and gives due charity. So due charity or zakat is in addition to giving away your wealth for these things. And this is why I gave those examples of Hazrat Talha and Hazrat Usman and Hazrat Abu Bakr and so on. So Islam places restrictions both on how you generate wealth. It has to be lawful. And in fact, at one time there was a famine in Arabia, and Hazrat Umar said that there will be no punishment for stealing food. And people said, punishment for theft is written in the Holy Quran. So how can you suspend that? And Hazrat Umar said, if I cannot feed my people, I have no right to punish them if they steal food. So Islam places restrictions on how you earn your wealth and how you use it. And what that means is that Islam says, okay, an individual has the right to earn money, to accumulate money by working hard, by coming up with new ideas, and so on and so forth. as long as he uses it for the correct purposes which have been mentioned before. So it's not just theory written in a book. This was actually put into practice initially. And it needed to be developed further into an economic system. But these are things, this is the wealth you can generate through your own effort. But what about things that nature has given? Oil, gas, and all of the coal, and gold and silver, and all of these things that you find in nature. You or I have played no part in developing these things. So all of these things belong to the whole community. I would say they belong to the whole of humanity. Oil and gas and water and air and gold and silver and uranium and whatever have you. Because God created them. God didn't say, I'm creating this for Shahid Aziz. God didn't say, I'm creating this for, I don't know, Abdullah or Joseph or Peter or Joshua. He created them for the whole of humanity. So Islam finds a middle course between the extremes of capitalism and extremes of communism. And I find it really sad that Muslims just became slavish followers of either capitalism or communism without trying to develop their own distinct and moderate and middle of the way economic system. And here is a saying of the Holy Prophet, because people are generally afraid of giving away things. But what will happen if I need it? The Holy Prophet said, this is in Ahmad, verily you will never leave anything for the sake of Allah Almighty, but that Allah will replace it with something better. And people who've made sacrifices for God's sake have seen this happen. That when they have put themselves out for Allah's sake and help humanity, when they've needed help, Allah has helped them. The promised Messiah, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, he set up a system under which every single member contributes to a central fund. And from that fund, you have pensions for widows, you have scholarships for students and free medical treatment, etc., etc. He set it up and it's still in operation, still working. But it is sad that people are quick to criticize the promised Messiah and Ahmadis. But even when we do something good, they fail to take account of it, they fail to copy it, they fail to use it for the benefit of their own people. This is where they are different from the West. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad set up a system where you, on your death, you left a part of your inheritance for the Jamaat, for the propagation of Islam or whatever else the center may decide. Many years later, Harvard University set up a similar system. And then it went on from there. I'm not saying they copied the promised Messiah. What I'm saying is they set up a similar system. They came up with the maybe same idea independently. Isn't it sad that West is copying what Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad proposed for benefit of Muslims and Islam, But all that we can do is to criticize him and point fingers at him. Barakallahu lana wa lakum fil Quranil Azim wa nafa'ana wa iyyakum bil ayati wa zikril hakim innahu ta'ala jawadun kareemun malikun barraufur rahim. Alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlilhu fala hadiya lahu. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasul. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. اللهم انصر من نصر دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم واجعلنا منهم واخذل من خذل دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا تجعلنا منهم. عباد الله رحمكم الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون. Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah, Hayya ala salah, Hayya ala falah, Qad qamatis salat, Qad qamatis salah. Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah. Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ونفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده
ربنا
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين والتين والزيتون وطور سينين وهذا البلد الأمين لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن تقويم ثم رددناه أسفل سافلين إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات فلهم أجر غير ممنون فما يكذبك بعد بالدين ليس الله بأحكم الحاكمين الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده
ربنا
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر السلام عليكم ورحمة الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله أستغفر الله أستغفر الله إني أستغفر الله من كل ذنب Thank you for joining our Friday service today. I hope you found it interesting and useful. If you have any topics in mind that you would like us to address, please let us know. Or any other suggestions. It's only through your positive criticism that we can improve our service to you. With the prayer that whoever you are and wherever you may be, regardless of your religion, sect, color, creed, nationality, may Allah keep the whole of humanity free from harm and under His protection. Until we meet again, Assalamu alaikum, Khuda Hafiz, and good